How's it going, everybody? We're back with the most encouraging podcast on the planet. That's the goal. That's the goal. If you haven't checked out any of the other podcasts, please go check them out. Every single one of you will help you be the most encouraging person on the planet. That's the bottom line. We need encouragement more than ever. We need people to be built up. And no matter what side you are, you're a Democrat, you better be encouraging. You're a Republican, you better be encouraging. You're a faith person, you better be encouraging. You're a non-faith person, you better be encouraging. Whoever you are, if you're not the most encouraging person on the planet, guess what? You're not living life. You're not alive. You're dead. And the bottom line is stop being dead, start being alive, and start being encouraging. Because guess what? If you're not encouraging someone, you're destroying someone. Encouragement is most important. Now, I got a guest on this episode who is an encouraging person. Sometimes I have discouraging people. Yeah. Wait till you see them. Maybe they'll come on. I don't know if anybody's willing. If you're out there and you're willing to be the most discouraging person on the planet, I'll have you on. I'll have you on this I promise you, I'll have you on this podcast. But this guy, he was born in Modesto, California. He's an executive coach, a communication expert. I don't know what kind of expert. I don't know. I mean, we've had some conversations in the past. I don't know how expert he's in communication, but we're going to find out today how much of an expert he is. He's an author. He's a communication and relationship coach, and he's a professional speaker. I've actually had the great gift and opportunity to be able to speak with him on many different platforms. He actually worked with Tony Robbins as an executive coach. He's passionate about making a difference in the lives of others. And I can tell you, this guy has been a great encouragement in my life. And we've had a long journey. I think it's over 15 years now. We've known each other. And I want to bring on Michael Lindstrom, Michael Lindstrom has been a blessing. So, Michael, thanks for coming on. I've had you on some other stuff, but I'm excited to see how encouraging you can be today.
Hey, we have so much fun together, man. We know each other it's been over 15 years. Usually I know that because Rhett is turning 15 in July, and we met before Rhett was born. So before I was even a dad, we met.
Well, I can tell you what, being a dad helps you to be more encouraging, right? Tell me one of what's been the most, beneficial gifts that your children have given you. You have two children, right? A 15-year-old, 13-year-old, right?
That's right. So yeah, when Rhett was born, it was I always called him the game changer. That was his nickname, literally, the game changer. And then when Colt came a couple of years later, I called him the life changer. Because now you have two of these, the two of these creatures that you got to protect, provide, lead, et cetera. But I would say the biggest thing is accountability to yourself. You're not always perfect. We all make mistakes at times, but to be able to know that there's, two pairs of eyes looking at every move you do, what you say, what you do, how you communicate it. And that always holds me to a high standard compared to some of my friends. I have friends that don't have children, and they talk about that. They're like, I got to be honest. Yeah, I'm married. I don't have kids. That's a different level of accountability than maybe I have that you have. So it's not a race, but you know as well as I do, it's a sense of purpose. When you have a sense of purpose, because you're creating a legacy for everything you do, not just what you believe, right? Spiritual or otherwise, but your behaviors and how that comes across.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. So important. Accountability. That's what my kids do. Every time I'm thinking, how is this going to affect my family? How is this going to affect my children? How is this going to affect the future for them? And I think that's where we since we met before, you had children. What are some of the things, like a lot of people are on here, maybe they have kids, maybe they're young. I have a lot of young people that listen to this podcast because we really help young people become great. We want young people to be great, but to be great, you got to be grateful. To be great, you have to be somebody with purpose, like you said. What's changed since the first time I met you, where we were speaking together? And now you shared with me before we got on, you shared, hey, look, man, I'm not traveling as much. So that's one thing that's different. And I'm sure there's a reason you're saying that's a good thing. What's something that's changed since,
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's so many things I could mention, but I'm going to bring this pertinent to you and I. I remember when you and I were together in Los Angeles doing the stand, and we had a conversation about a couple of situations where you in your ministry were challenged. Like, I remember one story you told me where a guy basically put a gun to your head and said, look, And I remember thinking, why would you put yourself in this situation, Justin? You know, and you were so congruent. You're like, Mike, I believe the trigger, that was the plan. But I believed if I loved harder and I encouraged harder, it would win out. And sure enough, you're still here to tell the story. But I remember thinking, wow, I'm not there yet in my faith. I'm not there. If I'm brutally honest with myself, like I probably wouldn't have done that or put myself in that predicament at the time. Where fast forward now, I get it. Like the things you were trying to encourage me to believe, not just as a believer, but also how it shows up in all areas of your life. So I think that's a big thing that's changed for me in the last 5 years, you know, especially, you know, since becoming part of the church.
Yeah. And I'm really about like encouraging all people. You know, I really hope that somebody shares this podcast with somebody who has the exact opposite belief system that I do. You know, like this isn't about like what I believe. You know, something that you and I are very congruent on is which something you brought to me, which I really love, is don't judge. You know, be curious. You know, like you brought to understand the second principle that you and I are so congruent on, and I think that that's so important. But you actually like. I remember, I mean, I don't know if you remember like this, but I remember like whether we were fighting about Kobe Bryant and LeBron, who's better, right? That used to be one of our staple. But also like, why do I have to live my faith that much? And you saying, well, come on, like there's all different types of people and all different faiths and all different backgrounds and I hope there are people who are listening right now going, yeah, I'm from a different background than these two guys. Maybe I don't believe what they believe, but you were in that situation where you were kind of like wondering about it. What made you like pull the plug and say, you know what? I'm going to decide my faith in this way. Because every person listening right now has a chance to say no faith or yes to faith, right? Just like they have a chance to say, hey, you know, what's important to me is more business or less business, you know?
Yeah, I think the biggest influence for me on that front was my grandfather, my Papa Ray. He passed away when he was 90, and he was a big influence on my life. He was born and raised Catholic, and when he married my grandmother, you know, way decades ago, she was Lutheran. And the joke in our family was she beat the Catholic out of him. So he kind of caved and, you know, hid all his rosary. And we joke about relics. These are the things that he used to have that were mindful of his faith. And all along, she passed away and he lived another 25 years. So he was by himself. And we spent a lot of time together. And he would say, Mike, there's going to be a time in your life where you're going to be a leader, not just in your businesses, but as a family. You're going to have kids one day and you're going to have to really embrace what faith is to you. Now, he never said you have to go do this or you have to go to church every Sunday or anything like that. But he was just giving me these little hints along the way. And then when he did pass away, I got this box of relics. One of them happened.
I remember you telling me that. I was like, what, Mike? You got a box of relics? What's that about?
I know it sounds like something from Egypt that you dig out of a ground, but no, it was just a joke of these are things that didn't mean anything to anybody, but it meant something to me. And I still have some of a print in my office here. I've got his rosary hanging. I mean, I've got different things in my office that have been around me. And I just realized at that point in my career, this is 5 years ago, my life, that the kids are getting older. They were not baptized in any way, shape, or form. And I just started asking questions. I called you. I called people in my life that I believe they had strong belief, and that's when I took the leap of faith and became part of the Catholic Church 5 years ago. And it's the best thing I ever did. And then one of my proudest moments was 2 years later watching Rhett and Colt be baptized at the same church, St. Thomas in Phoenix, and they're going to Catholic schools. They go to mass every Sunday, and it changed the whole dynamic of our family versus not having that in my life. So I finally listened to my grandfather. He was just dripping on me along the way. God winks, right? Little God winks. And God winked on me enough where I finally said, let's do this.
Yeah. And I think like what we're talking about is how to be the most encouraging person on the planet. Like every time I have a different author on like yourself or speaker like yourself, or I have just my wife. Can you believe it? My wife is even going to be on my podcast. Which anybody who knows that, anybody who knows my wife, she's going on the podcast with me. You know, this is serious. This is serious because she doesn't go on anything with me, not because she doesn't love me or love what I'm doing, because she really wanted to have everything separate. But to be the most encouraging person on the planet, The question is faith or no faith, and why? And like, it's a question I think everyone needs to ask.
Yeah.
What's your answer?
Yeah. So, you know, what's funny? I did a speaking event for the Young Entrepreneurs Business Group at, they call it Wine and Wisdom. It's a Friday night thing every month.
Yep.
21 to 35-year-old people that are looking at becoming Catholic or a Catholic part of the church, and they bring in guest speakers. And I speak at it about once a month. And I was doing my homework for this talk, and I went and studied the history of the word belief and faith. Dating all the way back to like the 1400s. And it was interesting because when you first, faith used to be just something that was non-religious when it first came about. And belief was much different. So it wasn't until about the 1500s that it swapped. Like if you ask somebody right now, the word faith, people naturally are going to go to like religious slant, right? That's not the way the word first came about. So now, if you just said the word belief could be anything. In this day and age, now, if you said belief, you think politics, right? You think blue, red, left, right, right? Because that's your belief. But when you really understand it for yourself, you're going to have beliefs about the world. You're going to have beliefs about yourself. But I believe no matter what, I don't care what the belief is or the faith is, you have to have a sense of, we use this word a lot, right? Congruence. Congruence is walk your talk, talk your walk. And if you're in complete alignment, mind, body, and soul, that's when you're the most powerful. That's when you're the best influencer. That's when you're the best encourager. That's when you're writing your best material. That's when I'm being the best father I could possibly be. So that's what I challenge anybody to do and say, look, you don't need to believe what I believe. You don't need to believe what Justin believes, but get some alignment in your life, mind, body, and soul, and be congruent and be the best version of yourself.
Yeah, and I think with young adults, I talk with a lot of young adults. We have young adults that give up a year or two to travel with myself or to serve in different cities to help other kids. And the question they're asking us is this: number one, how can I be influential? Number two, how can I get love? How can I be loved? How can I love? Right? Number two. And number three, they're asking, how can I supply some type of dominance, or how can people, and they sometimes look at it as dominance, I call the word respect. How can people respect me? Because kids right now want respect. They want love. They want, I use these terms, these are my terms I use. They want influence, respect, and love. So what do you tell young people? Like, how are you going to get respect? How are you going to get influence? And I'm in my world, like, it gets confusing for them. Because it gets confusing because they think love is like everyone. Like everyone has to love me. But that's not necessarily love. And they think everyone has to respect me. No, that's dominance. That's like control. Like not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to even respect you. So how do you help a kid to gain respect, gain influence, and gain love?
Yeah. And I go back to what you and I developed 15 years ago, and I still use this a lot, is you got to take a stand for your beliefs. You got to take a stand for your identity, how you want people to view you. You can't, be quiet. I think in a lot of times in this day and age, and I think unfortunately it's, the cell phones, the TikToks and the social media and the negative influence that is, that. You have this cancel culture that's like, well, if I say that, then I'm no one's going to like me, or they're going to cancel me, or they're not going to like my post. And it's a real thing. I've done it myself as an influencer where I'm like, I want to say that, but it might really offend someone. So I just kind of quiet down. And then I finally say, you know what, just send it. You look yourself in the mirror, you stand congruent about it, right? That's what you believe, Mike, put it out there. You're 50 years old. You're not 21 and worried about the next chapter of your life. So I try to take my 50-year-old mindset and hand it to like a 22-year-old. That's why I was talking about at this Friday night event I did with the Wine and Wisdom. And I told him the same thing. I said, look, I already know what your generation is. Just go on Wikipedia. It'll tell you all about Gen Z and they're this, that, and the other. It's all garbage. I said, that's our perception. That's some social person, like a behaviorist talking to you about your generation. Yeah. Don't buy it. Stand for yourself. Be your own brand and find that place and have the courage. That's what's funny when you talked about encouragement. What's in that word, right? Courage. You got to have the courage. You don't have encouragement without courage. And I think that's what I try to impart to the young people.
No, I love that. And somebody, when he was young, grew up with faith. He's one of your heroes. He grew up with faith. People would never have known this. He actually was a person that would go to church often. People didn't know this. He grew up to be one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And then people definitely don't want to talk about this, but I like to talk about it because it's controversial, but it's also something very important for his legacy. And he got accused of raping a girl, and he got in big trouble. And this person, you might not know he got accused of raping a girl because they probably wouldn't bring that up because they always bring up just the highlights. And during this time when he got accused of raping a girl, he went on ESPN, and it's shown all over, the world online. It's one of those constant influencer things you see. And Stephen A. Smith was asking him, like, why God? And he basically, do you know the line he used? Like, you probably know it better than me because he's your favorite player ever. He said, when I couldn't carry my own cross, I needed somebody to carry it for me.
Right.
And that's why I follow God. And that was Kobe Bryant. And that's look, I respect Kobe Bryant more now than I did when we used to go at it because, to be honest, I didn't think he was living congruently. And that's why, like, he didn't really put himself out there. Like, I actually agree with probably Kobe Bryant's stance on what he was about more than LeBron. More than LeBron. But I used to like LeBron, even though I even told you in the back of the day, I disagree with a lot of LeBron's. But LeBron will put himself out there. That guy will, like, he'll get crucified for it.
Yeah.
What do you think now? It's Kobe Bryant's life, God rest his soul. What a gift. I think he was a witness for our times. What are your thoughts now that you look back at Kobe Bryant's life and you see him and his legacy?
Yeah, that was, I mean, you see famous people, celebrities, athletes, people you look up to pass, and you'll read the news headlines and over, just everyday life. And that one hit me. Like, when I read that I was in this little restaurant and I saw the scroller and I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, there's no way. Like, this guy, there's no way. There's no way. No way. And then you go home and you watch all the news and all the talking heads talk about it. And, obviously you grieve for the family and the wife and who's left behind. But you go back and they've done lots of documentaries on these now since he's passed. You look at what he did. He realized at that point in his life, I don't know whatever year that was when that incident took place, that this is not the life. This is not me. That's incongruent. That's what you saw, the incongruence. Mind and body and soul were not aligned. And that's what it took for him to say, I need to line this up. This is not my legacy. If I die one day young, which he has, what are people going to be talking about? They're not talking about that incident. They know it's there because we were around for it, but it's what he was able to do after that, to true up in his marriage, to true up with his kids. I mean, you can't imagine. That'd be the toughest thing in the world, to look at your kids in the face and own up to a mistake that you did and not try to deny it and then recover from it and be this character that everyone looked up to, not just a competitor, but a character. And a lot of the faith had to do with that. Powerful.
It is powerful. And one of the best things, people don't know this, but read the story. That day, him and his daughter went to church. I don't know if you heard the story.
Yeah,
before they got on that airplane and he died, which I was so touched by. That it was that drilled. And something I like to talk about is like fatherhood. You know what I mean? I look at that Kobe I don't look at Kobe like, I'm not excited about Kobe Bryant because of his NBA skills, which he's unbelievable. Top 5, maybe top 7, Some people say 3. He never gets 1 or 2. I just want you to know he never gets 1 or 2.
I know where you stand.
He rarely gets 1 or 2. But no, but like, as a father, and I think this is something like identity. Identity is something I talk about a lot. And I think identity gets confused. And I said something on one of my recent podcasts that they can listen to, that, I don't walk up to people and go, I'm a heterosexual.
Right.
And I know it's a sticky topic. And I don't walk up to people and go, I'm a homosexual.
Yeah.
I walk to somebody up and go, I'm a son.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a father.
Right.
I'm a mother. And it's a sticky topic, but like, I think our identity, we really have to start cheering people on for being fathers, for being mothers, for being brothers, for being sons, for being daughters, for
Yeah.
being that. I think that's something that Kobe Bryant, for me, that spoke to me, of him being a father and really owning that, like you said, and holding ourselves accountable to that, what that means. Like, we live in a father. I coach basketball, as you know. I coach 3 teams right now. We're in a father's generation. What's your thought, like, with a father? Did you know? Like, I don't know if you studied this. They actually the the past 2 generations, like the Gen Z and before, it's over 50% that even know who they're. There was one study I saw. There's over 50% that know who their father is in that generation, that have a relationship with him, know him as a person, and spend time with him. It's something crazy, and I'd have to look it up to qualify those numbers. But what do we do with that? What's going on, Mike?
Yeah. So interesting. You can see behind me right there. That's my book, The Blue and Gold. What's Your Story? Right. That's my book. It's Discover the Man Behind Your Dad. That's why I wrote that book 6 years ago, because I saw the breakdown between my grandfather and my father's generation, the communication they had or didn't have, and then my dad and me, and then what I wanted to hand to my kids. So I wanted to shore things up. So God forbid if I ever were taken from this planet, like Kobe's situation, a random situation, not expected, my kids would know who I was. They know what I stood for. They know what my beliefs were. So that the book is 114 questions that my co-author and I came up with to get the conversation going. This happens to be a dad book because I'm a dad. You could write the same questions you could flip to your mother or your grandmother. It doesn't matter. But I think that's what the challenge is now, this whole concept of identity and behavior. I've taught this way before all the stickiness of, what do you identify as and all that. For 20 years, I've been talking about you have an identity and you have behavior. Identity is what I'm a man, I'm a father, I'm a son, right? Those are the hats that we wear. Behavior is how you show up, right? You show up sloppily, you show up angry, you show up upset, you show up with power. I mean, those are behaviors very much different. So I think what's happened nowadays in this, I'd say last 3 or 4 years, is the lines have just gotten blurred. People are confused between what's an identity and what's a behavior. And I think when people step back, it's really like who you are in here, man, like in your heart. You talk to yourself at 1,200 words a minute. Most of it's trash, and it's protecting yourself. It's scarcity. It's stress. It's protecting yourself. But if you could just change the script in your mind and say, you know what, I'm just going to be a better encourager. I'm just going to love people. I don't care what you want to be called or what your title is or what identities you want to hold for yourself. You're a person of God, right? That's it. I'm just going to love you harder. Whether you believe what I believe, it's not the point. And I think because those lines become blurred and it becomes controversial, no one wants to talk about it. So if you don't talk about it, you're encouraging. If you talk about it, now you have an opinion, and then we're going to put you in a box and label you,
Yeah. What do we do? Like, I mean, I really see a lot of these figures being thrown into boxes, making into villains on both ends, of the spectrum.
Yep.
We have this villainous, like, what is that doing for our society? I mean, and is that encouraging? Is that what encouragement's about?
It's completely divided. And I don't mean left and right, blue, red. I don't mean that, male, female, sexuality. That's not what I mean. It's the conversation. I mean, you always hear these famous stories of when this country was built, right? Bunch of dudes, Benjamin Franklin, all these guys are hanging out talking about politics, and we should make the republic look like this. And the conversation was open, and it was built towards something that's great, to build this great country that we live in. Now you can't even have those kind of conversations at your own school or at church or you and I on a podcast, because someone's going to watch it and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe Lindstrom said that. He must believe this. Because They take you from 0 to 100 because I don't say something enough. or if I say something just the wrong way, rather than just sit at the dinner table and talk it out. You know what I mean? And I think that's what's caused the divide is the lack of communication because I always point to this, the phone, right? Because of social media and we have access to that information in real time and it automatically puts people in these buckets.
So how do we get out of this as a culture? I heard on another podcast, it's a controversial guy. I actually appreciate him. I listen to him often, Jordan Peterson. And he shared this, that we're running into, he goes, I actually haven't claimed that I'm Christian, or he says, I don't even know what I am yet. He's even admits I'm figuring it out, but he says, we run into a problem when we take Jesus out of being our moral compass and our moral figure for society, because what he was is what everything's defined as in this modern era. And now the postmodern era is saying, get rid of that. So what happens if we get rid of Jesus and what he lived? Like, what's your thought? Like, you're like a dad. You're going to die soon. I'm a dad. I'm going to die soon. Hopefully not tomorrow, but we're not like Kobe. Hopefully not. He's our age, around our age. But what happens if we just decide to say no Jesus? Not to say it's going to happen, but what if they said no Jesus in this culture? Like Jordan Peterson's talking, does that have effect on our society in America and across the board?
Yeah, it's the fabric of our country is built on it. I mean, where you see the word God in just about anything. Go to Washington, D.C., look at any statue, any proclamation that built this country. It was founded a lot on that. Didn't say whether it was Catholic or non-Catholic. It didn't say that. It just talked about God, right? God bless us. God bless America. I love going to a baseball game and you get to sing certain songs in the honor of this country, whether it's the flag or God bless America or whatever it is. I still get chill bumps when I hear those certain songs, right? So I think what's happened is that we need the answer. Here's the answer. We need to do more of this. Guys like you and I've realized this too, Justin. That's why I was so I jumped at the opportunity to come on here and talk to you, regardless of where it goes. So in terms of faith or talking about God, because I don't lead with it in my business. So people know that about me.
And that's why just so you know, that's why I'm having you on. I have comedians, motivational leaders of our time on this show, because I want to let people know these are people that are just everyday people. Okay, go for it.
Yeah. So this is what we need to do. And that's what I think for me, the last year, I mean, during COVID, I know it was a wonky time in our country. I get all that divided and couldn't communicate, couldn't be with each other and all that. But coming off of COVID, I think a lot of it had to be when I turned 50 in November. It affects you a little bit. You're like, holy crap, I'm 50. This is like a real thing, right? Things are going to happen. The insurance company looks at what happens after 50. That's why the rates go up, because you got to
25 to 50 years, man. You're getting towards the median age, buddy. I'm going quick too.
So that influenced me for sure. And I remember talking to just really good friends like you, offline, not in the public domain. And I caught myself one night and I literally said, I went on a rant. I went on a rant, man. I was like, I'm sick of it. I can't voice up. I want to say certain things. I don't want to be a political figure. I have no desire to run for politics. I just want to be Mike and share the blessings that my grandfather gave me, or my father's given me, or my mother's given me, or my wife's given me, or my kids have given me. So I think for a bit there during post-COVID, because I wasn't on airplanes, I wasn't on live stages because we weren't live assembling, right? So I got kind of quiet. People even said, hey, what happened to Mike Lindstrom? I said, look, Mike, he's got big corporate contracts that are private relationships. I'm not on big public stages like I was when you and I were together, right? But I said in the next half of the year, meaning right now, mid-year, that's all going to change. I'm going back to that guy, the public guy. I told my web gal that. I told my marketing guys that. I said, I'm coming back out and I'm going to get on the stage. And I'm going to get on podcasts. I'm going to start speaking my mind and just being authentic and just be real. I think that's where it starts.
So, speak about that with your clients, if you could, not personally who they are, but like when you talk to them, where are they at in the sphere of the world, and what are their thoughts from the clients that you have as you help them? I know you help them on their daily life and having vision and goals and purpose as a executive coach, coaching these executives. That's what you do to leadership. Where are their thoughts on our country, on the world? Where are their thoughts? Where do we need to go from their perspective? Speak for your. I'm interested myself. Like, where are they at?
Yeah, I think the answer I would give is confusion. There's a lot of confusion. People know, like, for example, because I coach a lot of human resource departments at companies. And we all know in the last 3 years, especially with like Black Lives Matter, politics, all the issues of the day, it's become a very radical, it definitely puts you on a spectrum, right? Either you're good or you're bad or whatever. But I'm on these confidential conference calls. And you'll hear somebody say, we're not going to hire anybody in this group. And they'll literally come out and say, it could be white male over the age of 50. We need to make sure we fill it with this. So the HR directors get off these group calls and they have me one-on-one as their consultant. Like, Mike, what do I do with this? They want this engineer. I can't go get this kind of person. I got to go get this kind of person to fit this little tiny role that's very, 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 very unique. And it literally cuts out the gene pool of possibilities of people I could put in this position. So one of my buddies is a recruiter consulting this company. That's what he does, is recruiting. I thought they filled this position in this particular conference call I got off. And he was like, no, we're 7 months, because they've mandated the exact type of person that they want in that role instead of getting the best candidate. Instead of getting it because you went to Harvard or you have a high GPA or you know how to code a certain way. So it confuses a lot of people. And I see a lot of that on Zooms, because I'm on team Zooms, and you'll see people rolling their eyes going, I can't believe somebody just said that. I mean, that's, so I think the confusion would be the word. And it's helped me in my business because people turn to me as the consultant, as the outsider, to be able to kind of be the middle, like coach to the middle and say, look, here's what
what do you tell them?
Well, I like in these kind of situations, I said, look, you gotta stand, take a stand. Either this position is going to get filled or it's not going to get filled, because you're creating all these rules of engagement, whether it's hiring, firing, motivating, training, all these different things that we do in corporate America, right? But that's the whole part about protectionism, right? You don't want to voice up, because if you voice up, you get fired. Correct. Or you get canceled. So I think that's what I mean. Everyone's got an opinion or a belief system, but they don't want to voice it up. And I just encourage people, especially in leadership roles, you got to take a stand for these things. And what's right is not necessarily by color or by gender. It's what's right as a moral compass, right? Sure.
That's why the example you're using, Mike, is this. I'll use a politically correct example. Okay, there's there's no guys that want to be nurses, right? Let's just say there isn't, because usually women are more likely, but they're sitting there saying, we need guys that are nurses. Well, that's great, but we got 95 applications from women, only 5 from men, and these 5s are duds. These guys are duds. How's it going? It's Justin Fatica, and I can tell you I'm so thankful for your encouraging messages and engagement and joining us for our videos that we hope are bringing you encouragement when you need it most. Now, before you go, I want to tell you about some exciting news. Since I was 19 years old, it's my dream to build facilities for kids. Well, that dream is happening. It's a place where young people and their families can relax, socialize, work out, be encouraged, that they can make a difference in somebody's life every day or have their lives be impacted. That's where we need you. We need you to ask yourself if you'd like to help us to break ground. You can be a part of this mission within less than 1 year. But if we don't have help, we can't do this. Now, I know right now there are a lot of people struggling, but we're just looking for pocket change, a rainy day fund, or to connect us with partners who can help make this dream a reality. We want every single kid and every single family to to know they're amazing. And it starts with you. Please like, share, and subscribe to our content so we can keep you updated, so you can keep us going. And together, remember, we are making a lasting impact. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your support. And stay encouraged. And never forget, you were made for an amazing day. And it starts with what lives within you. You're amazing. We don't want the 5 duds. I want the 5. We need 5 new employees. Out of the 95, the 5 best people are these 5 women. This is craziness. Okay, now I'm going to get wild too here, because I know this better than anybody. This is my genre better than anybody. My genre is this. Understand, without being a psychologist, without being a psychiatrist, without being a counselor, with being a motivational speaker, with being a person with young people, the mental illness problem that's gone on, don't use the past 2 or 3 years as an excuse.
Right.
You were there. You were at those events when you were with me. You spoke with me. You helped me. You walked with me. You saw how many kids. If we have an auditorium or a gymnasium of 500 kids I spoke to, and I said, how many of you want to end your life? How many would come up?
A lot.
25 to 50%.
But that's a lot. That's a lot. If it's one, it's a lot.
My point is, now all of these people are 10 years later, right? Not to say that you can't, if you want to give up. Most people have been there where they want to give up. I'm not saying that that's bad or wrong or horrible. My point is, there's a mental illness problem in this country. And from me, as looking at it from outside looking in, this is mental illness running companies.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just not strategic. It's not logical. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. There's a bit that I do in my seminar. I've been doing this for a long time, even pre-COVID. And you might have 400 salespeople in a room, or 50 executives. Doesn't matter. And I say, by show of hands, who in here is completely happy with where they at in their life? Like, you've arrived, drop the mic, exit left. You are good. You are good. Raise your hand. Hands don't go up. Hands don't go up. I mean, you always get 1 or 2 people. The people that will have the courage to raise their hand, they're usually a faith-based person in some way. They're like, hey, I'm good with God. I'm good with my beliefs. I'm good. In a very humble approach. But 99% of people do not raise their hand. And I create the conversation from there and say, well, why not? I mean, you got this great CEO role. You're making 6 figures, flying around in private planes. What could possibly be wrong with you? And then they open up. And they start to hear about their marriage, start to hear about what's going on in that head trash that we talk about. And that's my point. Getting people to just open up. That's one thing I will say about the mental health conversation post-COVID or with COVID, is it got people less stigmatized. People were more open to say, but they were willing to raise their hand and go, you know what, Justin, I'm not doing well. I'm off, man. I gotta be honest with you. I'm not feeling good. I just need a day to myself. Go get a massage, or go to the beach, or go journal, or go to church, or whatever. But and it's given people, and companies have reacted that way in a good way. Yeah. Say, hey, you need a mental health day. You need a mental health day. Go. We're not even asking you what it's.
That's encouragement. I'm all about that. I'm not gonna say something. That's encouragement.
Yeah. So I'm seeing that happen more and more of acceptance when it comes to the mental health part of it. But when it comes to the conversation about inclusion and diversity and all those topics that have come about, it just puts people in a position where they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to be judged. And then, that's my rule 1, this, and it's going to be one of my in my chapter that I'm writing in the book, is my rule number 1 is don't judge, be curious. Because when you arrive at judgment, you stop asking questions. If you keep being more curious and more curious, you ask more questions, and you finally get to the root cause of what's causing that behavior, what's causing that mental health, what's causing that problem within that organization, because you're digging deeper to try to find out what the ends or what the beginning point is.
Yeah, and what you've written about, the win-win principle, is really what we need right now. It's not about the extreme here. It's not about the extreme there. It's how do we win together? And that's something that you and I look, I never desired to be a business speaker. I I did it with you and I would do it with you again. Why? Because I care about people, because I want to be a part of that genre, because guess what? I love people and I want to care for them. So I want to win with you. Just like you might be like, hey, I don't want to be, a speaker on faith discussion, but you and I are bringing business, right? We're bringing the business part of it and we're bringing the faith part of it. And we're saying, let's come together and win-win.
Right.
How do you think, as you're writing this Encouragement Conquers All book, and you're continuing to write about it and encourage people? Like, how do you think we're going to win nowadays? What's the way? And are there any examples in your own work that you can share with us?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the belief system has to change. The belief system has to change. The old belief was, I win, you lose. I'm better than you. I'm stronger than you. It's sports. There's always a winner and a loser, right? Boxing, hockey, you name it. There's always a winner and a loser. That's how we're brought up in our culture. Now, when it comes to life, though, that's different than sports. That's the rules of the sport, right? But the rules of life have carried that on, saying, well, I'm better than you. I'm a winner. It's win or lose. I actually wrote this in my chapter. The paradigm shift is this. It's either win-win or no deal. That's it. It's either win-win or no deal. Both parties can walk away and say, you know what? I don't feel good about that. I coach a lot of real estate people, and imagine someone sells a house for much less than what they want. Somebody gains because they're getting it below market. So they feel great. Like, I'm winning. I'm getting a deal. And the other person, the seller, is walking away going, man, that's way below market. We put more money into this house and we're just, and they walk away. They don't feel good about the deal. It would be much better if both parties, the seller says, you know what? No deal. No deal. I know this house is worth more. I put money into this thing. Maybe you're not the person. I'm going to wait, sit the market out, see if the interest rates go down. And in 6 months, I'm going to find a win-win situation, because right now I don't feel good about it. That's not what most people will do. Most people will take the loss and say, hey, well, I made a little bit of money. It's somebody else's home now. Let's move on. But I think that's the same thing in negotiation. I learned that my second year of law school. A lot of people don't know that. I'm a lawyer by education. That's where I met my wife. You know that. And that was my favorite class. It was called negotiations. They have what's called an American Jurisprudence Award for each class. If you get the highest grade in that class, it's called AmJur. You get the highest grade for that class. So I AmJured negotiations. And the reason why I AmJured negotiations is because I listened to the professor and he taught me something very, very unique. And I learned this at 24. You got to be creative in the negotiation. Look for things that are going to create values for other people. It's not a win-lose prospect. It's win-win, but you got to get creative in the deal making. And I've always prided myself. Every deal I've done, real estate deals, partnership deals, I bring other things in. Well, what about this? What about, why don't you pick up my my flight for my wife to go to Hawaii every once in a while? It's an expense to you. It throws into the deal. And hey, let's figure it out. Maybe we're off a little bit on the dollars and the cents, but you can throw in other things for me to feel good about the deal, right? I think that's one thing that I learned in law school that I've always carried with me to this day. And I'm going to reiterate that in the chapter. It's a belief shift. You did not have to go into life win-lose.
No, and I think that's why this book that I've written, it's a win-win, because I have 16 different writers. And why I did that, you've got the first black man that ever went to a white school in the state of Georgia. You've got yourself, a business leader, working with, a whole plethora of different authors. You've got, Ken Blanchard, who's one of the premier, what would you call
Godfather, man? The Godfather.
Okay, the Godfather of motivational speaking, who just called me today, who's a personal friend of mine, who is having our basketball team at his lake house for a graduation party, but nobody would suspect, that him and I are on the same team. Do I believe everything he believes? Does he believe everything I believe? Of course not. Do I believe everything you believe? Probably not. Do you believe everything? Probably not. Do I believe Reverend Rivers, who is one of the Black American activists in our country, who seals negotiation deals with cities for the police, for the blacks, and for the communities and the black churches within Philadelphia and Boston? Are we on the same page? No, but guess what? We want to encourage everybody. We want everybody. And I believe, look, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care who you are. If you're not about encouragement, you're not on my team. There's some things that I'm just being honest. don't you think there are some things, and I know you're in negotiations, so you're going to spin it. If there's anything Mike Lindstrom can do since the day I met him, he's the spin fester. Remember those conversations we'd have like, quit maneuvering me. Remember? I'm like, you're maneuvering me, Mike.
Yeah, I do. I remember those. It's funny. It's actually a technique that you learn. I learned that from Tony Robbins. It's called reframing.
Yeah.
It's when you take something that happens, could be good or bad, and you put a different lens on it or frame on it or meaning. It's what it is. It's the psychology of meanings. But no, to your point, it's to me, it's a non-negotiable. Like you can't be on my team either in any way. I don't care if it's my website or my sharing the stage like you and I've done. If encouragement's not there, I have this phrase I learned a long time ago. If you're not growing, you're dying. If you're not growing, you're dying. So if you're not into growth, you're not into a personal development like yourself, and you're not want to encourage and give it away, that's called abundance. Abundance is giving away to other people that may have less than. That's giving, whether it's giving money or to the church or whether it's giving your time. Abundance is knowing that there's plenty out there to go around. Okay. You don't need to hoard your skills. You don't need to hoard your money. Go out and just give. And if you're a contributor, you can be on my team any day.
Yeah. No. And that's the fun part of working with people. And I think this is what our culture needs. We got to work with people in different genres. We got to work with people in different belief systems. We have to find ways, Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to say, I don't believe this. That doesn't mean I'm going to say, but then guess what? You shouldn't be saying I have to believe something. I don't have to believe anything you tell me I have to believe. And I think there's a freedom in that. And I think that's what encouragement is about, freedom. Did you know my top 3 most discouraging times of my life? What? Were my most encouraging times? The day that Mary said, my wife, when we were dating in college, said, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to email you. I don't want to see you. That was one of the most discouraging moments, but it worked out to be the most encouraging moments because I had to fight for her. One of my most discouraging moments was when my whole life was, thrown in front of the world on HBO. And I think I'm on HBO, I'm going to impact the world. We're going to touch people's lives. I'm going to go into different genres and help people because I was looking at the glass half full, not half empty. But then all of a sudden I get all these, even though I'm getting thousands and thousands like yourself, emails that are positive. But then I realized that it was discouraging, that I got a lot of half empty emails. And, the third thing is meeting the most discouraging thing that's happening in my life is meeting tens of thousands of children telling me they've been raped, abused, left, mishandled. But those 3 discouragements were the greatest encouragements of my life. What's one of the greatest discouragements that you learned was your greatest encouragement?
Yeah, I think one of my biggest ones, I've got a lot of them, but I always talk about the trajectory of your life being pivoted on a moment where it could have went way different direction. It was my first year of law school. I was failing out after the first semester. So if there's 300 students in the class, I was in the bottom 10, not 10%, 10. And I had to sit down with my counselor at the time, and they said, look, for everybody who's below the pass rate after your first semester, you have 3 choices. Number 1 is drop out and realize this is probably not for you. Number 2 is keep going and good luck. You have an 8% chance of getting yourself higher than you've been. So the stats are not in your favor. Or 3, you drop out, you redo the first semester, you lose your scholarship money, and you do it all over again. And I remember I came home that day and I laid on my bed. I stared at the ceiling for probably hours and hours and hours. And I did, what am I going to do? What am I going to tell my parents? What are my friends going to think of me? What am I going to do? Okay. And I just kind of remember after this little depression that I was going through, this pity party, I rose up like a phoenix and I grabbed my note card. I'm a big note card guy from law school. You take notes on note cards. So I grabbed a note card and I put on there, how bad do you want it? Ask yourself one question. And I taped it on my door. I wrote 3 of them, one on my door, one in my binder, and one that was on the outer door, my bedroom door, the front door. And I would touch it every time I left the house. So I said, that's it. I'm going to tell the counselor I'm going for it. I'm going to take a chance, second semester, even though the stats are not in
number 2. You went for number 2.
The stats were not in my favor. I knew the odds were against me, but I knew I had more in my tank. I didn't study hard my first semester. I took it for granted. I was more at a happy hour than I was in the library. And I said in the second semester, I'm going to flip that. No more happy hours, no more social functioning. It's just going to be all about it. And I remember that back in the day, you got them in the mail. The grades came in the mail. So I was in Myrtle Beach 3 weeks after school ended, and my buddy checking my mail. And he's a law student as well. I said, do me a favor. Don't tell me anything. Just open the letter and read it to me. Don't mess with me. This is serious stuff because it's going to dictate whether I passed or failed. Okay. So I said, first question, is it a big letter or a small letter? He said, it's a big one. That's not good. Because that means there's a packet saying you failed and good luck, right? If it's a small one, it's just your grades and you're good. We already knew that. He goes, oh, it's a big one. Okay, go ahead and open it up. And he starts reading the scores. And I don't remember in order. But 90s are good, 80s are good. 74 was the cut line. I had to get an average of 74 for the full year to throw myself over the pass line, right? And I was like a 68 or whatever it was. So he's reading 92, 94, 86, 88, 92. I'm like, what's the cumulative? He goes, you're like at 79. You're good. I'm like, sweet.
Wow.
Of course, went out and had a party that night with my friends and
that's awesome.
But here's the thing. Monica and I had already met in law school, but I don't know if we would have stayed. If I dropped out, she had 2 more years and she went down her path and I would have gone a different path. I would have got my job with Tony Robbins. I mean, all these different things that could have happened if I didn't stop and ask that one simple question. Now, this is before my Robbins days. I didn't know personal development. I didn't understand the power of self-talk and all that stuff. I just knew I was an athlete growing up, so I knew discipline. If I put in the work, I could get the outcome. And that's, I think, for me. So I'll end with this. That is the name of my corporation. I told myself that semester that if I ever start my company in my life, I'm always going to have that phrase. So my corporation name is called One Question LLC. One Question LLC. And I remember when I started bringing my checks into the bank and the teller asked me, she's like, Mike, what's the one question? What is the one question? You do tell. I said, it's a long story. I said, but bottom line is it's my reminder. Every time I deposit a check, cut a check, see those letters, I have logos of it, a one with a question mark. It just reminds me to say, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want it? If you want it bad enough, your purpose is strong, just like you, building your ministry. Everyone telling you no. That's how you and I met. Me watching your documentary at midnight when I'm half tired coming off a business trip, watched the whole thing. I said, I got to reach out to this guy. So the fact that you've powered through that brought us together, which puts us on this pod. I mean, it's all connected. You see how it goes.
No, for sure. And I love that question. How bad do you want it? I think, that's the one of the principles in the Encouragement Conquers All book. It's hard work. And I think hard work, my name in Italian means fatica. It means work until you're fatigued in Italian. So that's really inbred within us. And I think hard work is what we need to win. Hard work, hard work seems like such a simple thing, but it's not. Everybody's like, make it easier for yourself. Okay, I get it. Work smarter, not harder. I understand that. But okay, well, what happens when it's hard? What happens when it's tough? And I like that you saw that it was about look at the relationship you receive. And I'll be honest with you. I bet your vulnerability increased. And I think when we don't realize our discouragements are an encouragement, that discouragement is a win-win for encouragement. That's why I look at discouragement equals encouragement. You're like, how that doesn't make sense. Well, it makes sense if you understand your purpose, your focus. And when you were discouraged, the win was you were more vulnerable. The win was you probably got closer. I don't know. Were you dating your wife then? Were you dating? No, you weren't.
No.
Okay, well, but it at least taught you vulnerability to be able to get ready for that, because I was at a basketball tournament in Rucker Park. We were, playing, and we were struggling, and our defense stopped communicating. And I go, would you guys communicate, please? Please, would you communicate? And the whole crowd's looking at me like, oh, this guy's going to have an aneurysm. And I said, yeah, it's like all your relationships. You're not getting any action because you don't want to communicate. The whole place is like, this guy. Are you serious? You don't even get any action. You're getting nothing because you don't want to communicate. And I think like discouragement creates that vulnerability in us that gives us more momentum. So when you're discouraged, know that you can win and be encouraged, even though you are just don't get distracted by that discouragement. And that's what I think, even my relationship with you, that was one of my favorite things. We were always having friction, like not in a bad way, but you were interested. Well, what about this? Well, what about that? And I think that's what we need right now, that you become friends. Our friendship began with, I had people from Sony TV flying to me. Not me going to their office, them flying to Syracuse, no-name New York, like wanting to spend time with me. So every person that came to me, I was skeptical, like, what are they coming to me for, right?
Yep.
And so when you came to me, I was a little skeptical. And now that we're friends to this day, it's been all worth it. It's been all worth it. And your own experience, and I can't tell you, like, the other thing we got to do is we got to go back to that stand. We got to because I think that's more needed now than ever.
Yeah.
Like those principles.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot, actually. That's when I was talking about the public mic coming out in the second half of the year. That's one of the things I was going to, I know the book's more important right now and getting that out. And that's going to me, dovetail into the things that we can explore in the next year, because we basically have the brand already established. We have the principles we already teach. It's just going back out there and finding the distribution and the audience to speak to, because right now, I mean, that's 13, 14 years old. We have a whole new generation of people that need to hear what we were talking about. Whole new generation.
Well, I think that's like, and that's where the docuseries that's coming out, like that, it's all about, like, people look at it as basketball. No, but basketball is the vehicle. People are interested in sports and athletics and whatever. But really, the docuseries is all about what we're about. It's about mentorship. Yeah. It's about, who are you mentoring? Like, I had a kid come to me the other day, says, I want to do what you do. I want to speak all over the country. I said, no, you don't.
Yeah.
And he goes, what do you mean? I go, well, who are you mentoring and where are they going?
Mm-hmm.
Because I said, me getting up on that stage means nothing unless people are following the life that I live.
Yeah.
Like, who are your everyday? And so it made him think, like, oh, yeah. I go, okay, so give me a list of your people. He goes, well, we'll have to work on that. And I think our society wants to go on a podcast before they want to live it in their life. Right. They want to teach you or train you these 8 principles. And that's why I'm pumped for, me, like, I'm about being authentic. Like, I'm pumped about the docuseries because it shows the witness of that. Like, and that's what you're doing, Mike, for your kids. We started with your kids, and I want to end with your kids and your wife, because I think that's something that we've devalued in this nation. We've devalued the importance of fatherhood and sonship and being a daughter and being a mother. I mean, I look at my wife. I mean, they're like, what do you do for a job? I go, and I'm like I'm ready to jump and go, like, the hardest job anybody could have. She homeschools 5 kids. She's with them every day, all day, like pouring into them. And people go, why are your kids? You meet my kids just like your kids. But my kids are unbelievable kids, but they're unbelievable kids because they have an unbelievable mother. And you know what I mean? I can take a little bit of credit, but like, as we get, what do you want to instill? What are, like, you're dead, you're gone, your spirit's alive within your children, just like your dad, just like your grandfather, like you talked about your grandfather. What do you want? What do you want them to take away with? I know you think about this stuff all the time, so this is easy for you to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious things of faith, having honesty, integrity, and courage, and all those things that we get through the principles, or reading scripture, that's a given. But I think the thing that stand out to me, it does kind of go back to what I just shared of how bad do you want it. Now that my kids are of the age where they really understand it, Rhett's going into high school, and
all boys high school.
Yeah. And this is where not everybody gets a medal. Like, you don't make the team, you're cut. But he's never had that his whole life. He's never had that. He's always been on, hey, come join our team because it's about the money. Travel baseball, travel basketball. They'll take your money in a heartbeat, even if you don't play. That's all changed. And I told him this. I said, buddy, your first day of summer school, that was 3 weeks ago. As soon as you step on that ball field and you step on that court, you're going to know exactly where you stand relative to your peer group. And that's when things are going to start for you asking that question. How bad do I want it? And am I willing to put the work in? And he is. I'm proud of him. He'll sometimes say, Dad, I want to go to the gym early on a Saturday to shoot. He was never getting up at 9 o'clock on a Saturday to go shoot a month ago. But the fact that he now understands to get that position on the basketball team, for example, he's got to put the time in. And it's no different with me when I was filling out of law school. It's no different with Mom, trying to get this, a new position within a judgeship. I mean, she had to compete with a lot of people to get that position when she got it, but she wanted it bad enough. Right. And I think that's one of the things I would want my kids to always remember about me.
That's beautiful. And something that I share with my wife is like, I just want my kids to see, I love my kids, with everything, like they touch my life every single day, but I want them to see how much I loved their mother, and I want that to overflow into love. Like if one encouragement, I tell my daughter, I say, good luck. She's like, with what? Finding a husband one day that loves like I love your mother. If you can find that kid's a winner. And she's like, Dad, that's going to be so hard. I go, exactly. It should be hard for you to find a guy, but they're out there because I'm not loving that perfectly. Trust me. I'm not loving that perfectly. So there's a guy out there you're going to be able to find to love you way more than I've loved your mother. But I'll tell you what, it's still going to be a difficult task for you. What would you speak to people who are getting married or we just had some young people just at their wedding recently. I have 10 weddings this summer of young people who've invited me. I can only make, 7 out of 10 of them.
Yeah.
And I love watching them get married. I love seeing that. What would you share with somebody who's married or getting married? Like, this is what's important in marriage. This is how I encourage my wife.
Yeah, I think the thing that I've realized more and more, my wife has been married 17 years now. So what I realized is that we're both getting older and we've been together longer, and we could have done this a lot sooner, but I think it's just with age and immaturity, and that's just what the marriages evolve, right? Is partnership. And when I say partnership, it's literally side by side. It's divide and conquer sometimes with the kids. It's, but knowing that you're both going in the same direction. It's not one's better than the other. There's no win-loss. Obviously, it's win-win. But when you seek out partnership beyond the obvious, love, intimacy, right? When you seek out partnership earlier on in the marriage, and that's everything. I mean, Justin, you and I met. I flew to your house and stayed, and you didn't know me from anyone. I mean, you could Google me and say, hey, this guy's legit, but you don't know me from anybody. I could be a serial killer. Stayed in your house based off of a cold call a month prior, and I'm coming out in the dead of winter, freezing my butt off. Literally, I didn't even have an overcoat jacket. And I sat in your house at your dinner table for the first time that you and I met, and you and your wife sat there with her. I think he was a baby. Your son was a baby at that time.
Yeah, Jojo.
I think it was just him. And you sat there in partnership. And you ask questions, and your wife came at me in a very professional way. It's like, what are you bringing to the table? Why are you here? Like, what do you envision this to be? And I felt that partnership immediately. And that's another reason why at the beginning, I'm like, I love this guy. He thinks similar to me. He wants to impact people. His heart is pure, but he also has a person in his life who's standing side by side with him in partnership. And by the way, believed in me, believed in us. We wouldn't have been together in the stand. I could have walked out, flew home, and she's like, I don't know. I don't trust this guy. He's a little sketchy. But she didn't. She believed in us, and that's why we're here today.
No, for sure. And I think that's what we need. We need win-win relationships. Like, you got to see how you can win. You always got to look at you've won. You believe that, you see that you can win, and you're going to work as hard as you can to win like you did in law school. And I just enjoy, we got to, hopefully, we'll be spending more time together in the next, 2 to 5 years. I've actually, I got to get out. I got to get out to Arizona too. I haven't gotten out in there to see those great people out there. I get all over the country, but I don't get out there very often. But I do want you to know, I'm really excited. I'm going to invite you to. We're going to have a couple big events in Los Angeles, for the docuseries, and I want to invite you to that. And I just thank you for allowing me. A lot of people in this culture don't allow people to challenge one another. You've challenged me, of course, and I know, but I'm okay being challenged, and that helps me to grow. But you were older than me. You were a little bit more seasoned than me. I challenged you, and you didn't take it like, oh, he's being a jerk. He's judging me. He's looking down upon me. And I think that's, from my perspective, as I close on this podcast, that's what we need. We need people, different strokes for different folks, but guess what? People that are willing to be challenged and accept the challenge. And that's the kind of guy you are, Mike. And I love it. You're like, that's where we are similar. Like you'll never stop. You'll never stop. You'll just keep going.
I appreciate you, brother. I do. This is very special to me, just because the impact you've had on not just my life, but my faith. And you're one of the first people I called. You remember when I was
like blown away. I did not expect that call.
Yeah. So that's a big, important part of my life now. And I wanted you to know that, how important that is to me, for you to know that. So we just got to keep pushing each other, man. The people need to hear this message, and we just have to take that stand and have the courage to voice it up and talk about this stuff, create an open forum.
No, for sure. And I will see you soon. That's for sure. I love you, brother.
Love you too, brother, man. Be good. God bless.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Encouragement Conquers All podcast with Justin Fatica. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this episode with someone who needs a little encouragement. For more uplifting content, follow us on our social media pages. See you in the next episode.